You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans of the United States and Newfoundland, and an extra big hello to Canadian servicemen overseas.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs Fan, and joining me as always, my winger, Ricky Squid Vibe. Squid, our guest today, you didn't play with him, but you've spent a lot of time doing Legends games with him. A very popular Maple Leaf, Darcy Tucker.
Yeah, real funny guy, great guy, and him and his brother-in-law, Shayne Corson, played with them a bunch of times in alumni games. They always make it fun. And, you know, that's what we try to do as an alumni when we go out and do those things, is not only entertain the fans and sign autographs, but make sure we have fun doing it.
Yeah, and those guys, I'll tell you, Shayne and Darcy are certain guys who like to have fun. So listen, we'll be getting into that with him in just a short time way. But our Leafs, we're end of the week here. This is the 20th. They play Montreal tonight. The last three games, I guess, can be summed up with the old Clint Eastwood movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and probably in that order. But the sum of the parts paint the picture, but the results tell the tale, meaning 5 of 6 points ain't bad.
Not bad at all. And you look at them now sitting, pretty comfortably at the top of the Northern, Scotia, Canadian division, whatever you want to call them. Everybody calls them something different, but and they're sitting pretty comfortable there. I mean, hopefully that doesn't filter into them becoming comfortable, because I don't think they have the luxury of doing that. But they're firing pretty good right now on all cylinders, with the exception of that collapse with the 5-1 lead. But other than that, I mean, they're playing some pretty darn good hockey, and I'm enjoying it. I think this is a real opportunistic year for the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, because if they go back to the old divisions and they've got Tampa, Florida, Boston in their division, it's going to be a little bit tougher.
Well, it's no coincidence if you look at the way the league is spread out with the 4 divisions that 4 of the Leaf foes, or 3 of the Leaf foes, of the 4 of them, Florida, Tampa, and Boston, are all leading or within a point of their respective divisions. So it just states again how strong the division Toronto plays in to begin with.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it might be, I would say right now it's probably the strongest division in the entire league. I mean, I don't think any of the other ones match it. And so, that kind of tells you, when everybody's talking about, the Leafs that can't get first place in home ice and all this kind of stuff. Well, there's a reason for that, because they're playing against good hockey teams all the time, because they're all in the same division.
I know you and I have been talking a little bit the last couple of days about the lineup, and I know it's tough, but people are always saying, we're picking on players, teams in first place, first overall in the NHL, but you always want to, advance and be better, because again, we don't know how good the competition will be at the end of the year, because the other divisions are all going through the same thing. And it was nice to see Tavares and Nylander both score last night, who have been slumping. And I'd like to see a couple tweaks to the lineup, and one of them I'd like to see is maybe a guy like Travis Boydman given more of an opportunity like Wayne Simmons was. Maybe playing him with Tavares on one side and taking Mikheyev and putting him on the other side, and taking Nylander away from him for a while to take the pressure off them to score, because you notice they both scored when they both weren't on the ice last night with each other. And maybe give a little more veteran presence. Not that Tavares doesn't have, maybe with Spezza playing with Nylander for a little bit and throw somebody with him just to shake it up. And you see Keefe does at the end of the game switch the lines up quite a bit. But maybe I'd like to see Boyd get a little bit of a chance, because he does have some hands. He's a bigger guy. And I just don't like seeing the fact that Tavares is getting pounded. He's doing all the heavy lifting. I like to see maybe take somebody to lift that little burden up. And it's not going to be William Nylander, because that's not the type of player he is. So I would like to maybe see, that maybe come into the lineup at some point. And when Simmons gets back, of course, throw him in there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of good moving parts, which I guess is probably a plus, really. I mean, because you can move guys, and all of a sudden you have 4 pretty good lines coming at you if you start moving guys around. And, Sheldon Keefe has got a lot of different options. And I agree. I would like to see a couple of guys, like you say, Boyd and somebody else put with Tavares, obviously Simmons when he comes back. Because Johnny, you know, that's the way Johnny plays, but he needs other guys that play that way, get in there and retrieve pucks like a Hyman and that sort of thing, which I was surprised he wasn't in the lineup last night.
I heard he got hit with the puck the other night. He got hurt with the puck.
Oh, did he? Okay. But I think that gives him a lot of flexibility.
Well, you know, Tavares is one of these guys whose whole career has made players better around him. So I mean, it would fit his blueprint to a T. So I just love to see that experiment at some point and give that a shot. And I'm sure the way Keefe is moving things around, we may see that. So we'll watch with interest. And now, leading into tonight, now we have 34 is playing exceptional hockey right now, and every goal is going in. Every shot is going in. 16 goals in 17 games. Those are pretty blistering numbers that are turning heads throughout the National Hockey League. But how about this for a little bit of trivia this week, Squid? February the 20th, 1918, Montreal's Joe Malone scored his 7th hat trick in a 20-game schedule. They beat the Toronto Arenas 5-4. But how about that? 7 hat tricks in 20 games. He ended up with 44.
Impressive. Pretty impressive.
So there you go. So just
I don't care when it was, or who it was, or who was in the league. 7 hat tricks in 20 games is pretty darn good.
Not bad. And 44 goals in 20 games. So until 99 came along, I believe. So, and in 1944, in this day, on February the 20th, Chicago and Toronto, here's one for you, played to a scoreless tie and no penalties. And the game was over in an hour and 55 minutes. Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh boy, that would be so nice. It would be, but you got the 18-minute intermission, so I don't think there's a chance that that's ever going to happen again.
Now, speaking of which, now days in history, now I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, because normally we record 2 days before, so usually Thursday. Now, Thursday was the 18th of February. And that day rings a bell for both of us on 2 fronts that are both near and dear to us. One, Deb's birthday is February the 18th. So that I cannot ever forget. And I even have to write that down and carry it in my pocket and put it on my phone so I don't forget. And you, my friend, 1980 on February 18th was a pretty big change in your life as well.
Yeah, that was the day that Billy DeLego and I got traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs for Tiger Williams and Jerry Butler. And it's a day that I will never forget, probably forever. Maybe when I'm older and start forgetting things, I might forget about it. But it was kind of a tough day, but at the same time, it was a great day because I knew that I was going somewhere where I was going to get a chance to play more than I was getting in Vancouver. So, and lo and behold, a lot of great things came out of that.
Well, and we heard Hawk Turnbull last week talk about the turmoil that was going on here at the time, and you guys just walked in as it was all being blown up. So you were given, it just kind of worked for you guys because you guys just, and good on you guys to seize the opportunity and run with it, and you both did.
You know, that was the thing. I mean, you know, when you see all Daryl's buddies and everybody getting moved out and everything's kind of turmoil around Toronto, and then you get traded there and you're thinking about that, but you're trying to put that aside and going, yeah, but you know, with that comes the opportunity for us to grab a hold of this thing and be part of going forward in this organization. And that's exactly what Billy and I did.
And you guys did it very commendably and terrific. And they're already talking now about that one kid wearing number 34 beat one of your records of 54 goals, maybe as soon as this year. So, you know, that's never going to stop. He's always going to be on the chase. And we'll have him on here the day he does eventually break your record, and we're never going to jinx him. But when he does do it one day, we'll have him on. And we'll have a good talk between you guys about it.
Well, hopefully the day he does it, I'll be able to go down and visit him at the rink and like Frank Mahalvas did for me, which was a big thrill for me that he came down the next day to practice and got pictures taken with me and congratulated me and everything. And hopefully I get the opportunity. I mean, who knows? We might even see the first Maple Leaf to score 50 and 50 this year. Because they're only playing 56, and the Canadian division so far, pandemic has not really, hurt that division as it has other divisions in the U.S. So they may get their 56 games in, and who knows? He's on pace for 55, 56 goals the way he's going right now.
Well, the way that kid plays, you never say never. So we'll leave it at that, and we'll just wish him the best moving forward, and just keep winning, guys, and keep those pucks going in and out. Well, speaking of the net, I think they're going to throw the net over you and I right now to end this, and let's bring our old friend Darcy Tucker on and hear what he has to say. Okay, Squid, our guest today enjoyed close to 16 years in the National Hockey League, originally a 6th-round draft pick of the Montreal Canadiens, spent a few years in Tampa, but really made a name for himself with the Toronto Maple Leafs, who endeared himself to the fans, who wasn't a big guy, played with big heart and lots of passion. Fan favorite, Darcy Tucker. Darcy, how are we doing today?
I'm doing outstanding, gentlemen. Just sitting here watching it snow outside, and just getting ready to talk to you, gentlemen. It's an honor for me to be on with you, both of you. And as you know, I really appreciate Ricky. We've become really good friends over the years, and this will be a lot of fun.
Ricky, what do you say to that, Squid?
Well, I got to tell you, playing a lot of alumni games together and going on trips and all kinds of different things. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I've gotten to meet a lot of guys I didn't play with that played for the Maple Leafs over the years, and it's no different from one era to the other. They're all great guys, and we all have fun. I mean, we've been out to Newfoundland, Halifax together, and it's been a ton of fun.
Well, speaking of fun, I know I run into this guy and his winger there, his brother-in-law, and they do a lot of terrific work with the Molson rivalry train and the throwback games and all that stuff. And let me tell you, these guys do have fun. That was with a capital F, that's for sure. So, and the fans love it. You guys share the story. I look at the faces and the fans when I see you guys in the boxes, and the faces are just beaming. So it's just great work you guys are doing, and keep it up, Darcy.
I appreciate it.
You got so let's go back. You're a Western boy and enjoyed a stellar junior career in Kamloops. I mean, let's face it, winning 1 Memorial Cup, never mind 3. I mean, my God. And 4 years you did this. But walk us through your playing career leading up to Kamloops and the success you guys had there in junior.
My junior career in Kamloops was quite interesting, to say the least. As a young guy, I didn't think I was going to get the opportunity to play junior hockey. I wasn't drafted into the Western Hockey League. They watched me on one of those handheld videos back in the day. It's not like our phones now where you can just hold them up and make a video for the general managers. So they put together a video and sent it to the general manager, Bob Brown, and he liked what he saw. And they invited me to training camp, and somehow I went there and made the hockey club. It's kind of a real strange story, but it just goes to show you sometimes it's not necessarily the same path for everybody. And I had a different sort of path when it came to making that hockey club. And then, I played with some outstanding players in junior hockey right from the get-go. Daryl Sador and Scott Niedermeyer were my first year our defensemen. Like, can you imagine having 2 stellar defensemen like that on your junior team? And then my last 2 years to get the opportunity to play with Shane Doan and Drew McGinley, most of the time on the same line. If you put together a junior hockey threesome of guys like that, your scouts are doing a pretty good job to find players of that caliber. And I talk about those 2 not only as good hockey players, but you look at them as human beings. You're not a captain of the National Hockey League for as long as they were by not being good people. And we had some pretty good people there in Kamloops.
It's fantastic. So, I mean, you get drafted in the 6th round by Montreal, but leading into your draft year, what was your thought process about the upcoming draft and possibly playing pro hockey?
Gosh, yeah, the draft was interesting for me, guys. You're gonna get a kick out of some of this stuff because leading up to the NHL draft, I'd scored 90 points in the WHL, and my agent at the time said to me, "I don't know if you're gonna get drafted or not." So I said, "Well, if I'm not getting drafted, I'm not going." So I ended up staying back in Kamloops and graduating with my graduating class at school. And I woke up that next morning and happened to flip on the draft. It was, probably halfway through the 5th round at the time, and I hadn't been picked. So I just, sat down and watched a little bit of it. And then I was actually making something to eat, and my phone rang, and it was my agent. He goes, "I think Montreal's going to pick you right now." And I'm like, "Are you serious?" And he goes, "Yeah, I think they are," because he was at the draft. And so Montreal ended up picking me in the 6th round that year. And it's kind of crazy. I was sitting on my couch eating a sandwich when it happened. And it's not a thing that most guys go through, where they're sitting on their couch eating a sandwich when they get drafted to the National Hockey League. So it's an interesting story, to say the least.
Well, then you had a couple years left to play junior. So did that? Sorry, Rick, you go in a second. But did that motivate you just to play even harder going into your last couple of years?
I don't know. Junior for me was just a blur. I had so much fun playing junior hockey. It just seemed like we were so good that everything came relatively easy for us as a group of players. I didn't really have the motivation. For me was always there. A small town kid from a town of 25 people. Growing up on a farm, motivation was always there for me. It was, do you want to go back to the farm and farm, or do you want to play hard and have a life in hockey? So the motivation wasn't that difficult for me, but I had fun playing junior. It just seemed like every game you went into, we had an opportunity to win the hockey game and do something great. And I played with such good players that it made it so much easier for me.
I made it out to your hometown when we played an alumni game out there, which was, now what was the name of the motel we stayed in? I can't remember, but
I think it was it the Goose, the Grey Goose or something?
Yeah, it was. And I tell you, it was freezing. It was freezing. I remember my room, there was no heat whatsoever. And I asked them to fix it when we went to the game. When I came back, it hadn't been fixed. I had to wear all my clothes, my jacket and everything underneath the sheet. But going back to your junior, I mean, going to the Memorial Cup 4 times. I mean, the only other guy I know of that did that was Stan Spiel with New Westminster. And I think they only won 1, and to win 3 out of 4, that's pretty impressive. I can see why it was a blur and so much fun, because all you guys did was win. And I mean, I can't even imagine. That must have been an awesome feeling. And then going to the draft, I had a similar thing happen where that was a year of the WHA merging with the NHL. So the draft was pushed back to August, and it was just a phone draft. So here I am sitting at home. I was at the fire hall with all my buddies and everything, waiting for the phone call. And, it wasn't on TV or anything back then. I mean, we're talking 1979. So there's been a lot of changes since then.
So, Darcy, you go to Montreal and you end up in Fredericton, and you have a big year there. So walk us through your year of Fredericton and end up being Rookie of the Year. I mean, that must have then given you some confidence that things were looking up for you to play pro hockey.
Well, it was a tale of 2 years, to be honest with you. I went to Montreal being this highly touted junior player that had just won these Memorial Cups and put up a bunch of points. And I went in there thinking, man, this is going to be just as easy as junior. I'm going to walk in here and play for the Montreal Canadiens. And wow, it was an eye-opening experience to be out there on the ice with those guys. It was so much faster. Everything happened at a different pace. And I got sent to Fredericton. And anything in life for the first time is never easy. So I went down to Fredericton, and now I'm paying my own bills. I'm making my own meals. There's no billets there to look after you. You're having to do things away from the rink that you're not normally accustomed to. And I was in shock. Like, my system was in shock. I didn't understand it. I played very poorly for basically the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks of the season. I wasn't very good. I think I had 6 goals at Christmas. And my dad called me at Christmas and he said, listen, you got 4 days here between games. Get on a plane, come home, and bring your skates. I'm like, okay, bring my skates. So I brought my skates home, and he said, listen, this is the way it goes. You're going to go out in the ice here at our local rink with your brother. I'm going to put my skates on, and we're just going to have some fun and get some of this stuff out of your system. You just got to have fun playing the game again. And lo and behold, I went back after Christmas, and the first 2 games, I scored a hat trick in the first game, and I scored a hat trick in the second game. I had more goals, or just as many goals, in the first 2 games back after Christmas that I had before Christmas. So sometimes it's just you just need to get away from the game and spend some time just being a kid again. And it felt great. And the rest of the season went just like it did in junior. I put up, I think, in those last 30 games, I think I ended up with at least 55 or 60 points, and that kind of catapulted me forward. And I got called up to the big team, played a few games, and kind of the rest is left in the background for that year in Fredericton.
Squid?
Darcy, is that kind of when at the end of that AHL season, or maybe the next season, when you kind of realize that, okay, you know what, I am good enough to play with you? I mean, everybody has that moment where, or period of time where, they realize, okay, I am good enough to play with these guys. And was that for you in the American League, or was that later when you went up to Montreal?
I think for me, the thought process was more so that playoff year. Montreal had sent the GM down to watch us play in the playoffs, and I was at the peak of my game at that point. I think I had in the first round, I think I scored 7 goals in the first round of the playoffs that year, and it seemed like everything was kind of firing on all cylinders. And when I kind of got confirmation, that things were going in the right direction from the management, I think that was the kind of time when I felt like, okay, man, I can really do this. They believe in me. I believe in myself. I finished off a good American Hockey League season. Let's go home, get in shape here, and get ready to go for the following season. And everything just kind of fell in place. And when I walked into training camp the next year, Mario Tremblay said to me, "You're going to be here. You're going to be on the team. Let's see what you got." And that was kind of my aha moment, I guess you would have to say.
So you're with the big team. Was that, did you really think you were going to get a really fair shot there, and then eventually get moved to Tampa?
Yeah, so that first year in Montreal was really good. Good learning experience. We had 3 pretty good centermen that I played behind: Pierre Turgeon, Vincent Damphousse, and Saku Koivu were our top 3 centermen. So for me to break into the NHL and be, kind of brought along a little bit slowly, I had the opportunity to play regularly. Each and every game I was in the lineup. It was the following season that things kind of fell apart in Montreal. When the new coach came in, Alain Vigneault came in as the new coach. He liked speed and skill at a different pace than I played with, I guess. And so it kind of fell apart from that point in time. And I'd asked to be moved somewhere where I could get an opportunity with somebody who believed in me. And Jacques Demers had went down to Tampa, and he was my first coach in Montreal and my first kind of training camps and stuff. And he brought me down there, and that was a different. He said that the moment I got there, you're going to play 20 minutes a game. And he played me 20 minutes a game. I was like, I went from playing 8 to 20 overnight, and I was like, man, I got to find some different lungs here. We need some oxygen tank on this bench. That's where my career took off. you have somebody who extremely believes in you and gives you an opportunity. It's a lot of fun as a hockey player. You get that love for the game back immediately.
Well, in Tampa, I was going to say, it's basically a double question here for you. The culture shock and playing there, number one, coming from Montreal. And I'll just tell you my little story at the time. Back then when you were playing there, I didn't know who you were at the time, by the way. Sorry, Darce, but my kids are really young. My kids were really young. And so I decided we were vacationing in here. I said, so let's go to a game one night. So I'll take them to the game. And I thought Tampa, not a lot of interest. I'll grab a couple tickets at the front for like 10, 15 bucks. I arrive at the rink, no scalpers. I'm walking around. There's no ticket sellers anywhere to be seen to think, holy shit, even the sellers, like ticket guys won't show up here. So I have to go to the box office, pay like 50 or 60 bucks a ticket to get in. So I'm pissed at that. Go to the game. So we're watching the game, watching it. And I'm not saying it's just because you stood out that night. Like you seem to be on the ice. You're just saying 20 minutes. They said, who's this Tucker guy? Like he's on the ice all the time. So I went and got a program and looked you up. And I thought, okay. So I started following some of the players. Well, then all of a sudden, a couple months later, lo and behold, you're in Toronto.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was an interesting time when I got dealt to Toronto. We were in a process of kind of rebuilding there, and we obviously weren't going to make the playoffs that year as a team, and they wanted to rebuild kind of the way their team played, and Toronto was looking for some feistiness. They'd been in some wars with Philadelphia on the ice, and they were looking for some sandpaper and some grit. And I remember it vividly. We were at lunch with Mike Sillinger and myself, and back then you had those old big brick cell phones, and I didn't bring mine in. It was in the car, and Mike's phone rang, and I thought, oh my gosh, Mike just got traded, because he's like, hi, Rick. And Rick Dudley was the general manager, and he goes, yeah, he's here in front of me. And I'm like, oh, it's me. And I just dropped the phone, and I'm like, okay, where am I going? And there was obviously some talk about trades happening, and it couldn't have happened to a better place. I was super excited. My wife's from Barrie, Ontario. It's made it very easy transition to come to Toronto. We just had our first child. My wife was pregnant with our second. And to come to Toronto, I'll never forget that opening night, walking in Scotiabank Arena and getting the opportunity to play in front of those fans. You're coming from playing in front of 8,000 people to 20,000 people, and the place is all about hockey and Saturday nights and Hockey Night in Canada back again. They were going to find out very soon who I was, I'll tell you that, because I wasn't leaving anything to chance. I wanted to play here, and I wanted to play here for a long time.
Rick, you went through a similar situation coming from Vancouver.
Yeah, getting to that part, you mentioned the grit and everything, and like, did you play like that from the beginning, or is that something you felt you had to add to your game to maybe be able to play at that highest level and work your way up and be a better player? Because I mean, the diving into the bench against the Senators and the hits in the playoffs. I mean, I loved it. Don't get me wrong. I was doing Leafs TV, I think, at the time, and watching it, and I loved it. But is that something that you personally, felt you had to do because you weren't the biggest guy on the ice, or is that the way you just always were?
Well, Rick, for me, it was I was, as a kid, a very soft personality, but I really believed in everything my father told me. I had a special relationship with him. He played hockey at a high level. My mom got pregnant with me, and he came home from playing junior and ended his career. So I always had a special relationship with my father. So he always used to tell me, if you're not doing what you need to do offensively on the ice, you need to find a way to impact the game in any way possible. And so when I played in Montreal, they told me, you're going to be a fourth line centerman, and you're going to have to play gritty, and you're going to have to be hard to play against, and you're going to have to do all these things. And I just had to adapt my game. And as you know, it's a lot more fun riding around on a plane making NHL money than it is riding around on a bus making $30,000 a year. So you better figure it out as a player. And I find sometimes today with today's players, they don't figure it out because they're not willing to adapt and change to the way they need to play to be effective. And so was I always like that? No, Rick, I definitely wasn't. I was a pretty soft kid growing up. So, but like I said, I had a great relationship with my father, and if he said something, I took it as gospel.
Well, you're still soft, Darcy, because you're still soft, Darcy, because you're a great guy, and I've been with you a lot. You're still a soft guy, trust me. Inside, anyway.
Hey, Squid, remember when we had JR? We had JR in a while ago, and so we brought up, of course, we have to talk about Toronto, and we brought up that night against Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to him, I think probably one of the hardest hits you've ever had to have had in your life was the one that Darcy Tucker led on you in that playoff game. I think it was in the opening couple of minutes. And I said, I was at that game, and I'm pretty sure Tucker started at center ice and targeted you. And he said, that is probably the hardest hit he ever had in his whole life. But the funniest part of the story, well, not for us as Leaf fans and you playing, was the hit at the end of the game. And Squid, you're working for Leafs TV at the time. I made that call. Yeah. Now, do you remember, obviously you remember that game, Darcy, do you remember that whole sequence of everything happening?
Yeah, I actually do. It was a pretty physical series that we had with Philadelphia. And I hit JR early in the game. And, obviously you're trying to take their best players and put them on notice that it's not going to be an easy night. And then as the game progressed, it was a hard fought game. And then in overtime, Kapanen was coming along the boards, and I just thought to myself, he's skating pretty fast. He gets by me here. Maybe they make a play and beat us. So I took it in my hands to make sure he didn't get by me.
He didn't.
He sure didn't.
And the weird part about that whole sequence is people think it happened like 10 seconds or 20 seconds later. I was already sitting on the bench. Kapanen had been out there for a good 22 or 23 seconds trying to get off the ice. And we had picked up the puck and gone down the ice, and Mats had jumped on the ice, and he ended up getting a high stick and cut for like 5 stitches. So when the puck went into the corner and I sat down on the bench, the puck got rimmed around the boards, and Brian Leach went to save the puck at the blue line, and it jumped over his stick. And then obviously Roenick had got on the ice for his shift and went down and scored the goal. So it wasn't like it happened 20 seconds later. It was like a good minute and a half.
Squid, you called that for Leafs TV.
Yeah, I was with Leafs TV at the time, and you remember where our old alumni box used to be up in the third level. Well, that's right outside of that box is where we did our pre and post game shows with who was there? Brian Duff was there. He was a host with me, and you know what? I love doing that. I had a good time because I got to watch all the games. It was a good era. There were good games, and you guys had a good hockey club. So I loved it. I thought it was great that I got to do that. And one of the things during that time was your coach and I think general manager for part of it, Pat Quinn. And I've done a lot of things with Pat over the years at different things. And we would stay, like, he was an unbelievable man. He loved to talk. He loved to talk about hockey. What was your relationship like with Pat?
Yeah, my relationship with Pat was extremely kind of like a father and son. And he was just such an amazing mentor and guider of people. He did things for guys that just upped their games. He let me be me. That's the one thing about Pat. He never gave me trouble for being and doing things that were crossing the line. I think maybe because he was a little bit that way as a player. He liked to ride the line like I did, i.e. the Bobby Orr hit. There's things in his personality that matched my personality. And I say this to people all the time. I wouldn't be the same father, husband, coach when I do coach the young kids without Pat Quinn's mentorship and guidance. So just a great man. God rest his soul. He did a lot of things for a lot of people over the course of his time coaching, and those people should be very thankful that Pat, they had the opportunity to be around Pat.
Well, just if it makes you feel any better, by the way, to finish the JR story, he told us that's the best goal he ever scored in his career, just to make you feel a little bit better, even though I know it won't. But he said the favorite moment was the picture. I'm watching the highlight after, is that when he scored and he was going down the ice celebrating, they showed a fan behind him and guys screaming at the top of their lungs at him. And one guy in particular was just like, F you. And JR just thought that was the greatest thing. That's why he just loved playing in Toronto. Now, speaking of which, Matt Sundin, he always gets sort of, I don't want to call him a polarizing captain, but he always gets knocked for not being that type of captain that everybody sort of expected to be, which us as fans, we don't know what that's supposed to be. And I've got one on the line here with us. You as a player, what was your view of him as leading you guys as his captain?
Matt was a great captain. He was the type of guy that when he spoke, people listened. He didn't have to do it a lot or didn't do it a lot. We had a lot of guys in that locker room that had been captains, whether at the junior level or at the NHL level. So Matt's had a good surrounding cast to help him with the leadership aspect of it. But from a Toronto Maple Leaf captain, he's an amazing person. It's too bad we weren't able to win a Stanley Cup and him hoist it as the captain. But as a player, I always looked up to Matt's. He was never the guy that went and hid. He always stood up for his teammates and talked about what was wrong with the hockey club. And you got to give him credit. This is not an easy place to be a captain, as Ricky knows. It's a difficult place to play. As a captain, the pressure is on you each and every night to perform, and he did that very, very well over the course of his time here in Toronto. And there's been amazing captains through the history of our organization, as Ricky knows as well. And when I look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, Matt's ranks up there with Rick and the other captains as one of the greats that ever played the game here in Toronto.
That was one of the things that I was always curious about that, because I couldn't believe the fans and how everybody kind of talk about why is he captain and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, I'm doing Leafs TV. I'm watching him going out every night, playing exceptionally well, scoring, producing. And I thought, like I don't get it. I didn't understand why the people thought that. Maybe because he was Swedish and he was maybe somewhat of a quiet guy. He didn't say a whole lot. But everybody's different. Every captain is different. Some people, are quiet. They do it on the ice, and some are a little more vocal. I thought he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement of that, Rick. He is just a fantastic human being too. His personality and Pat's personality meshed well, and the fact that they could speak to each other and talk about things. You don't do what Matt Sundin did in the city of Toronto unless you have a pretty thick backbone as well. So you know this as well as I do. This is the toughest market. It's like playing for the Yankees in baseball, or the New York Knicks in basketball, or those LA Lakers. You better have some thick skin and be able to handle those things. And he did it admirably over the course of his time here. And we went and we did well. We had a pretty good hockey club, went to conference finals. Obviously we didn't get over the proverbial hump, as you call it, to win the Stanley Cup, but we were pretty darn close.
On the same lines, you mentioned, and I've always said this, I've always said, if you don't have thick skin, you can't play in Toronto. Plain and simple, because the not just the fans, but the press are bad on it. Like they're always looking for negative things to point out. And I thought during that time, I don't think, I was the same way. I had thick skin. I didn't care. Rolled off my back. Of course, we didn't have the covers they have today. But when Matt was there, I always marveled at how calm he was, and he just let it go. So I believe he was probably similar to I was, where he didn't let it get to him.
Yeah, he was good that way. And, It's good to have other people around you that can take some of the brunt of it too. I think, when you look at when Joe Noondike was here, and Gary Roberts and Shayne Corson, and we had some pretty good guys on defense, and McCabe and Caberlet. We had other guys that could take some of the heat away from that aspect of it, which helped. It's not something that's like the old days where it was like, hey, it's just the captain, he's going to take the brunt of it. It was a lot of us that tried to ease that aspect of it for our captains as well. So when Ricky played, it was a lot of just the captain. It's got to be just the captain. That's where it was. As times moved on here, and you could see it even now to today. They surround themselves with a lot of different guys that can take the brunt of that.
Well, now, Darcy, you've kind of touched on it already, but we'll go a little bit further with it. I just want to carry along that line. And coming from Western Canada, you know about Maple Leaf Gardens, you know about the Toronto, you know about Scotiabank and all that stuff. So playing in Toronto, though, coming from a hockey hotbed like Montreal, most players, and we asked this to all the guys coming on, and Curtis Joseph just said it was just well beyond his expectations when we asked him this question. But when you got here and finally got entrenched into the culture of Toronto, being a Toronto Maple Leaf, was it as you expected, more, or just off the charts? And then even going on the road, seeing the following you got doing that as well.
It's not lost on me. My dad grew up a Leafs fan. So becoming a Toronto Maple Leaf was not something that just, okay, I'm going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. I knew about the rich history. We only got one station where I lived as a kid. So on Saturday nights, a lot of it was Toronto Maple Leaf hockey. There wasn't, the Oilers and Flames were just becoming, Alberta's teams where they would go on TV once in a while, but it was always watching the Toronto Maple Leafs. That was my Saturday night. So it wasn't lost on me when I came here. And then when they'd play the stuff on the Jumbotron, guys like Ricky scoring goals, Daryl Sittler, Johnny Bauer, the hair on the back of my neck would stand on end. So I knew what it was like to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, and I took a lot of pride in the fact that I was representing the Toronto Maple Leafs logo and the city of Toronto wherever I went as a player, wherever we went as a team. So I loved being a Toronto Maple Leaf. I still love being a Toronto Maple Leaf. I believe myself to be that. And you know what has happened over the course of time, and Ricky can attest to this, is that our alumni association has done an amazing job of bringing us back together where it was lost for a few years. And I think a lot of that was maybe just as I was starting to become a Toronto Maple Leaf, and through some of my early stages as a Toronto Maple Leaf. And now I look at our alumni association and I look at the guys, they're so extremely happy to, come to the games and be in the alumni box and talk about old stories. And that for me is what keeps us together as a group. My expectation was high to begin with, and it went through the roof as I played here in Toronto, and even more so now that I'm a retired Toronto Maple Leaf and part of our group of alumni. So it's something that's pretty special, and you don't understand it or realize it unless you actually play here for a number of years.
Yeah, I mean, it's you go into the alumni box at any given night. Well, obviously not now, but before the pandemic, and I mean, there's 6-7 guys in there. And we played, I think, last year, about 18 or 19 alumni games. And we went all the way out to Victoria and places like that. So, I mean, it's a lot of fun. And we didn't have that when I played because, we didn't have anybody to talk to that were alumni because Harold didn't want any of them around. And that's just kind of the way it was. And then all of a sudden that started to change in the early 90s, and then it got better and better. And our alumni association right now, I put them up against any team in the NHL.
Well, speaking of which, we had another alumni on a couple of weeks ago, your brother-in-law, Darcy, and when he came to Toronto now, were you influential in him signing with Toronto? Because there were a number of teams that were interested in him at the time.
I don't know if I necessarily was influential in it. Obviously, we're family, and that happened when I was in Montreal. I think more so, Shayne grew up, outside of Toronto, and his mom being here and his father had passed away. And I think the family was pretty influential in the fact that he was going to come back, as they say, home. I obviously wanted him to be here. I told him numerous times, but those decisions have to be left up to the player. Life is too short to come home. You have to make decisions that are going to be the best for you as an individual and as a player. But I was extremely happy to have him. He's just a great human being. I can't say enough about Shayne as a person. Sometimes in life you go through a lot of different things that people don't have any clue that you're going through. And we held that in a lot. When Shayne was going through his issues with panic attacks and those sorts of things. So, I got a lot of time for Shayne Corson and the way he handles himself. And, he's like an older brother to me. He absolutely is. I never had an older brother. So to have him in my life is pretty special. And, it's been even more special actually in retirement. We do a lot of family things together, and we have some serious fun doing them. And life's too short not to have fun. It's just, you can't go through life not enjoying every last minute of it and taking those experiences with you as you get older.
Now, for the record, by the way, he said you did have some influence in him coming to Toronto, so you did help us get him.
I know I give myself all the credit, do I now?
Now, I was going to say this part of it on a little more serious side of that question is now playing with a family member. Is it a little harder than people would imagine? Like everybody always think it'd be so great, but one guy may be going good, another guy may be going through a rough patch, maybe getting yelled at by the coach or something. Was it a little tougher to play with a family member at some point?
Only from the aspect that he used to yell at me when he was back checking and skating by me to get my ass moving. Sometimes that wasn't fun when you got your older brother screaming at you to back check harder, because I wasn't the best skater, and he was a pretty darn good one for a bigger guy. So he'd blow by me on the back check and start screaming at me on the ice to smarten my ass up and work harder. So maybe from that aspect, but no, the other part of it is I was extremely excited it didn't matter if we were playing great or we were playing poorly. We had each other to lean on from time to time. And, it was fun. I enjoyed those times. Obviously, people didn't know the background or the other part of it, what Shayne was going through. So when there was things in the press that were said about certain aspects of it, it did bother us. But like Ricky said, you got to have some thick skin to play here. So we kind of, for the most part, let it roll off our backs, and we knew what was going on. And like I said earlier, we had a lot of fun. And when you're playing the game and you got a brother alongside you and you have fun with him, you'll never forget those memories for sure.
No, I remember a few trips in Newfoundland and Halifax with you guys, and it was fun. Trust me. It was, of course, I was long gone by the time they even went out. Probably started in the hotel bar, and by the time I went to bed, they were just going out. So.
Yeah,
and you're probably getting up when we were coming in, Ricky.
Well, as I said at the beginning of this call, anybody who gets a chance to go on a Molson trip with Darcy Tucker and Shayne Corson, sign up immediately and run down and grab your ticket, okay? Because I guarantee you would not have fun. Now, speaking of which, we've got a couple minutes left, and Darcy, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. You give a very, very busy schedule. A couple of fun questions here for you. Who was one of the bigger pranksters you played with throughout your career?
Oh, gosh. I played with a few. Adam Foote in Colorado was a pretty big prankster. He had a big personality. I really enjoyed my time playing in Colorado with him. We had some fun here in Toronto. There was guys that were pranksters. Travis Green is a pretty big prankster. He's coach of Vancouver now. I enjoyed playing with him and seeing some of the fun stuff that he would do to guys.
Can you share one with us? Give us one of his who he got somebody one night.
I'll share an Adam Foote one with you because some of the stuff, other stuff, we probably couldn't lose. So Adam Foote and I were in Colorado, and we had a young guy, TJ Gagliardi, on the team, and it was his first time up with a hockey club, and he just bought these blue suede shoes that he was going to wear on the road. So we had one of those maintenance days, as they call them now, Adam and I. So we were taking a steamer and a hot tub and getting ourselves ready to go on the road trip. And we grabbed his blue suede shoes, and on the back of them with a marker, we wrote the number 9 with a line underneath, like bowling shoes. And you can't get permanent marker off blue suede shoes if you tried to. So he had to wear those blue suede shoes around on the road trip looking like he was going to the bowling alley. And he was definitely not happy about it. And he's like, I spent $500. It's like, I'm like, dude, you got to get some sort of rookie initiation. Trust me, that's half of what I would have got. My tie would have been cut when I was playing.
Oh,
Squid,
boy,
can you
yeah,
match that one? You always come up with one.
Well, no, you know what, the best one, well, actually, the best one I can remember is probably the guys used to put baby powder in the hair dryer. And so whoever came out of the shower first would get the hair dryer and it would go everywhere. Well, this one time somebody had done it before practice, and we were on the ice, and of course Harold goes in and gets his legs rubbed and everything every morning, and goes in and has a shower. Well, he was the one that happened to get the blow dryer with. So it was everywhere, and it was all over him. We came off the ice, he's standing there, and he's laughing though. He loved it. He said, that was hilarious. He goes, I don't know who thought of that, but that was the best prank I've ever heard of. And we're like stunned because we look and we go, oh my God, we're shit now. But he loved it.
You thought you were all getting fined, Ricky.
What's that?
You thought you were all getting fined from the big boy.
Well, no, it was probably worse than that. We thought we were all going to get traded, but he loved the prank, so that just made it that much better for us.
Well, Jimmy Thompson, when he was in LA, told me a story one time that he was getting pranked a few times with the baby powder in the hair dryer, and he thought enough. Finally, he got into the rink early one day, and he thought he would get somebody else finally. So he did it, and unfortunately, number 99 picked up the hair dryer, and he got him full in the face. Oh, no. And he didn't sleep for a week. He was so scared that he was going to get in trouble. So sometimes those things can backfire on you. Darcy, while we have you, you guys came up with a very creative idea a number of years ago. The Cool Line, I think it was called, your clothing. Who came up with that? And are you guys still doing anything along those lines?
No, it was a project with Shayne and a friend of ours. And no, we haven't been involved in that since I left to go to Colorado to play. It's too hard to run a business and you're not in the same country. So
yeah, a little tough.
We ended up selling it off.
Well, how'd you come up with the idea of the Bill Barocco twist?
Well, that was the playoffs that year.
Yeah.
I think any team tries to grab something that they can hang on to take through the playoffs. And the BB16 was obviously the fact that you had to win 16 games, and Bill Barocco was, something that obviously we needed to rally around that playoff year. And I remember speaking to the guys about it and putting it together, and it was something that we thought would be great for the hockey team.
Well, those hot hats were the hottest selling item in Toronto at the time, I can tell you. And if there's any still around, they're real collector's items, I can tell you that much. So
yeah, they are. I don't know if there's any still around, but that'd be great if you could find one.
Yeah, I haven't seen them over the years, but used to see them everywhere during that period. A couple last questions before we do officially let you go. Now, where is the strangest place you've run into a Maple Leaf fan in your travels?
Oh gosh, number of times we've been on holidays and ran into Maple Leafs fans. We were in Anguilla, I guess, 2 years ago, and Shayne and I were walking to our favorite spot, the pool bar, and
that's a surprise to me.
Shocker.
and we hear somebody yell out, Corson, Tucker, and there's a family sitting there with their Leafs t-shirts on, and needless to say, Shayne and I had a few pops and didn't have to pay for them that day. It was interesting. But yeah, you run into different Leafs fans in your travels, and we travel a lot together in the summer times. Since we sold our cottages up in Muskoka, we've put a plan in place to. Obviously, we couldn't do it this year, to travel as a family across the world to see different places and give our kids an opportunity to get some culture in their lives. And it's been an eye-opening experience how many Leafs fans are across the world, I'll tell you that.
Well, and final question for me,
sorry, Mike.
Squid, you can go ahead, Squid, throw something in there.
Yeah, it's amazing, Darcy, you brought that up because I never really thought about that, but I can't remember a trip that I went to Cuba, Hawaii, or wherever the heck it was, where I didn't run into Leaf fans at the pool, or like you say, at the pool bar or whatever. It's just amazing. Like, all of a sudden you hear someone say, Rick Vide, and you turn around and there's 4 or 5 Leaf fans sitting there. And so I think that's pretty cool. I never thought of it until you mentioned that. And I thought, come to think of it, I met a lot of them on the road on vacations as well.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that Debbie, for my 60th birthday, took me to Africa for a safari. So we're walking in this shanty town called Arusha, near Arusha, and it's not a pleasant area, believe me. And we're walking along, and I hear this motorcycle come over the path towards us, and the guy's wearing a Daryl Sittler sweater.
Come on.
I thought, yeah, honest to God. And I thought, oh my God, okay, that's it. And we broke up howling with laughter. And the people are looking at us while we're laughing. I just said the sweater, I've never seen that. And it was in Africa. So that was the one. Darcy, before we let you go, last one here. What do you think of this current version of the Toronto Maple Leafs?
I like it. I like the additions. For me, that I like guys that play the game with a little bit of rambunctious part of their personality, yes. And Wayne Simmons has brought a different element to the team. I think it just adds something to the group. And anytime you can add an older guy with leadership, that'll help the young guys get through certain aspects. And the growth of the younger player has been good in this scenario. Austin's playing lights out. Marner's got some passion for the game that he brings each and every night from the aspect that he's going to get the puck to these guys. And so I like the team. I think they've taken a step forward. I think this year is in being what it is. This could be one of those times where everything kind of comes together. Wouldn't it be special that the Toronto Maple Leafs won a Stanley Cup and nobody could go to the parade? It would be like, what the heck would we do? Like, it would be different aspect of it, but we'll take it if we can get it, Ricky.
Anyway,
absolutely,
Rick?
Absolutely. And, I think if anything, this is a year where the possibilities are even greater with the Canadian division. Obviously, they're the best team in Canada right now. And but I love what you said. I've loved the maturation of Matthews and Marner and these guys. They came in and, they did good things, don't get me wrong. But the way they've matured, I think, over the last 2 or 3 years has really caught my eye, especially Matthews, who I think maybe that incident in Arizona probably was a little embarrassing to him. Maybe a little wake-up call. And now, since then, he's been training like crazy, working with McDavid, training with him. Who better to train with than probably the fastest guy in the league? And I see a big difference in his game today because of that.
I want to say, listen, it's been time goes too quick all the time. Darce, want to thank you so much for joining us today. Great guest. We've got the whole family now. We've had both sides. So what we're going to probably do at some point, if we get deeper, and we'll get you both on and get you guys going back and forth at some point. So anyway, you want to
if we want to hear the truth, we probably should have had their wives on. They could probably tell us more about these guys than they will.
No chance, Ricky.
No, I think we'll leave that one alone. We'll leave that one alone, maybe, Rick. Or we'll pull Joyce on for you. Okay, then we'll get the real stories.
That's right.
Okay, so listen, Darcy, I want to thank you so much. Listen, best of luck to your son with his hockey playing. He seems to be on the right track again. So All the best to you. And listen, man, we'll be talking to you soon.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks a lot.
Well, there's a guy, not only did he play with his emotions on his sleeve, he wears his heart on his sleeve away from the rink, and the pride you can just see just oozes out of the guy to wear that Maple Leaf crest on the front of his jersey.
Well, I think the most impressive thing is the way he carries himself away from not being a player when he's around fans and stuff. Like I've experienced it with him and his brother-in-law Shayne and a lot of other guys going to Newfoundland, Halifax, Victoria, you name it. We've been all over the country playing for the Leaf alumni. And one thing I will say is that these guys are all fantastic individuals. Guys I haven't played with before, that played after me, or in some cases even before me. And not very many though. I'm not sure most of them can skate that fast anymore. But I mean, it's been like a real treat for me because I'm kind of one of the older guys. And to get to know these younger guys that played after me, they're all fantastic people.
No, and I've had the pleasure of being around a number of these guys, and they're all from Doug Gilmore to Wendell Clark to Darcy and Shayne and yourself, Curtis Joseph, all Ally Frady. You guys are all, for us who have grown up cheering for the Maple Leafs, you give everybody what they're looking for. You give them that little taste to be a part of it. Everybody's very accommodating, and what everybody comes across very clearly, you guys are hockey fans first, your players second, and the relationship you have with the fans is second to none. And it just once again puts forward why hockey players are the best.
And we have a lot of fun doing it.
And that is absolutely true. And as I said, folks, I think this is the third time I've said it on the podcast. If you ever get a chance to go on one of these trips with Darcy Tucker, even Squid here is a lot of fun too. But Darcy and Shayne or Ally Frady, you will not be disappointed. Trust me. Those guys are a barrel of laughs. So, Squid, we come to that point in time again where we have to say goodbye. Another good show. We enjoyed having Darcy on. Great stories. Very intense guy. Very focused. Yeah. And you can see why he played with the passion he did and why the fans are so in love with this guy. So anyway, another week goes by. Look us up on Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan. Find Ricky on Instagram. Look for us on Apple and iTunes. And guys, send us any of your requests or comments that you may have about the show. And in the meantime, everybody enjoy the week. Let's have the Leafs win a couple more games coming up, and we'll talk to you guys next week.